What's up, gamers? I'm your host, Cobra, and on today's episode of the Freeroll, we're breaking down Earthen Key Cards. The intention of key card videos is to provide you with a quick start of the most popular cards from a given parallel. If you choose the maximum of 3 of each of these cards, you'll have 24 out of the required 40 Earthen cards for your deck. Next up is the Earthen Key Cards, and let's jump right in with the units themselves. We have 3 of them to take a look at today for Earthen, and the first is Steward of the Garden. She is a 1 energy 0/4 unit, and that doesn't sound terribly helpful, but the key is her ability, which reads, at the start of your turn, gain 1 energy. So she is a 0/4 unit, which is not terribly useful, especially because she doesn't have Defender, but Earthen has many ways to potentially give her Defender, which will make her more useful, but you don't even care if that really happens because she is out there to generate additional energy for you. Earthen has lots of bigger, high energy cards in it, and that includes some of the Paragons as well, so it is really beneficial to get more energy early in the game. And if you do nothing else to Steward of the Garden, then there's a decent chance your opponent's just going to ignore it because it's not going to deal any damage, and the extra energy is a threat, but it doesn't feel quite as threatening as an ability that, say, does direct damage. And next up is, honestly, the staple card for the entire parallel, Mizra Loyalist, everybody's favorite nightmare. Mizra Loyalist is a 2 energy 1/3 unit, which doesn't sound terribly threatening all by itself, but the key again is in the ability. Retaliate. Friendly units named Mizra Loyalist on the field, in hand, and in deck gain +1/+1. So you're always going to put the full 3 copies of Mizra Loyalist into every single Earthen deck. 2 energy means that he can be played fairly early in the game, and once he does, because he has 3 health, he has the ability to absorb a few attacks. Retaliate means every time that it receives damage. So you're going to be able to attack and remove some small units, and he's going to get buffed, which is essentially healing him as well, and it's going to buff all of the other copies of Mizra Loyalist in your deck. So with an Earthen deck, because they stall and are playing the long game, it's very typical that they'll get a second Mizra Loyalist played, and oftentimes they'll be able to get all 3 of them played. If the third one comes out, it's usually been buffed up 4 or 5 times, so you could be looking at a 5-6 unit for just 2 energy coming at you late in the game. That is a real problem. There's a couple of other cards that you can combo with Mizra Loyalist as well to make him even more of a problem to deal with, and we'll talk about those in just a moment. The last unit that we want to take a look at today is Emissary of Gaffar, a 4 energy 3/4 unit, and again the key comes from the ability. After another friendly unit is destroyed in combat, target enemy unit gains Pacifist until the end of the enemy's next turn. So this is really, really nice. Obviously, it pairs quite nicely with Gaffar because giving Pacifist to your opponent will trigger Gaffar's buff, but this is really, really annoying in any Earthen deck because Pacifist means that they can't attack. When you're doing that, it means that they don't get to attack for 2 turns, which is really, really annoying. And so when the Emissary of Gaffar gets played, your opponent's going to want to take it out relatively quickly. Moving on, let's take a look at a couple of upgrades, and the first is the Malachite Shield, and this is a 3 energy upgrade that gives the unit +1/+4 and Defender. It also has the ability that after this unit deals damage to a player, that player reveals one of their banked cards. We don't really care too much about that part. This one is much more about the +1/+4 and Defender, which is quite a lot of boost for just 3 energy. And then even better than that is the Cape of Char Mahal. This is another 3 energy upgrade, but its ability is if upgraded unit would be destroyed, fully heal it and destroy this upgrade again. Now, that is great. So essentially you get a whole second copy of a unit once it gets destroyed because it comes back fully healed and the upgrade goes away instead. Think about putting that on your Mizra Loyalist, which is getting buffed and buffing all of the other Mizra Loyalists every time that it receives damage. Put the Cape of Char Mahal on it, and it will grow as it's receiving damage. Then it will fully heal when it finally gets destroyed, which means that it can take even more damage and continue buffing the other Mizra Loyalists. Sick when that happens. The first one is Life Stream. It is only 1 energy, and at the start of each player's turn, that player chooses a target to be healed by 1. Again, you are going to have a lot more healing available to you because you're going to be playing units with the idea that you're taking the healing in mind, and you're going to have lots of defenders as well, which means they will be able to absorb quite a lot of damage. The second one is Life Well. It works very similarly for 2 energy. You get this relic, and at the start of each player's turn, heal that player and all units they control for 1. So again, this is going to apply a lot more healing for just 2 energy, but really useful because you're ready to take advantage of that healing. And finally, I have just one effect for you today, but it is a super helpful one. It is the Earthen Board Wipe Virulent Spores. Virulent Spores is just a 3 energy effect, and it has the very powerful ability of all units gain decay. So this is essentially a very inexpensive boardwalk. The way that decay works is essentially damage over time. And at the start of every player's turn, all of the units that they control with decay receive 1 damage, and they deal 1 damage to all units adjacent to them as well. So depending on how they are laid out on the board will determine exactly how that damage is applied, but essentially every unit's going to receive 2 or 3 damage at the beginning of every single turn. This is going to take out everything on the board rather quickly. Against aggro decks, it's going to take out pretty much everything in a single swoop for just 3 energy. Yes, it's going to give decay to your units as well, but not that big a deal. Your units are typically for defense, which means they are typically for being sacrificed. They are also typically going to be high health and low attack, so it's going to take more time to remove your own units. And that is why Virulent Spores is really beneficial. This is going to really slow down all of the aggro decks that might otherwise cause Earthen a problem. Alright, so let's quickly review the Earthen Key Cards. There are 8 of them in total, so if you go for the maximum of all 8, you will have 24 out of the 40 required cards for your new Earthen deck. The units that you're looking for are Steward of the Garden, Mizra Loyalist, and Emissary of Gaffar. The upgrades that you're looking for are Malachite Shield and Cape of Char Mahal. The relics you want are Life Stream and Life Well. And finally, the key effect is Virulent Spores. I hope you found this video fun and educational, and if you did, consider giving us a subscribe by clicking the button below. It only takes a second to support the channel, and you're not going to want to miss any of the excellent parallel content coming from the Freeroll in the future.